Welcome back to the Sleepy Blocks channel. Today, we will be experiencing a story about the mighty Ender Dragon and how she learned to stay humble. This is an episode of the series, The Tale of Every Creature, so if you like it, be sure to subscribe. But now, enjoy the story. In the beginning, there was only Violet, a deep, endless violet that swallowed sound and softened edges until nothing felt sharp anymore. The creature rested there, wings folded like forgotten night, body coiled in a slow circle around the one thing that still mattered. A single egg, small as a heartbeat, cradled in black obsidian that rose from the island like the ribs of some ancient, sleeping thing. No sun rose here, no moon drifted. Time did not pass so much as it waited, patient and heavy. The dragon had guarded this egg since the first quiet breath of the end itself, long before the first portal flickered open, long before any footsteps dared cross the threshold from brighter worlds. It was not duty that kept the great shadow here. It was the only warmth the creature had ever known. Every so often the egg would glow, soft and uncertain, a pale lavender pulse that traveled through obsidian veins and lit the dragon's scales from underneath. In those moments, the guardian felt something close to hope, something close to fear. The light was fragile, too fragile. One wrong breath, one careless wing beat, and it might go dark forever. So the creature stayed, always circling, always watching. The central fountain hissed quietly, purple particles drifting upward like slow snow. Towers stood at the edges of the island, each crowned with a crystal that shimmered faintly, feeding strength back into weary bones whenever the dragon faltered. Those crystals had been here almost as long as the egg. Someone, something, had placed them once, long ago, as if the world itself understood how lonely eternity could become. But the dragon did not think of the past. It thought only of the egg and of the silence. The silence was the worst part. It pressed against scales, seeped into joints, made every small sound, the drip of void water, the faint crackle of endstone, feel like betrayal. No birds sang here, no wind carried voices, only the slow beat of massive wings when the creature shifted, and the even slower thump of a heart that had learned to wait. Sometimes, in the deepest part of the quiet, the dragon lowered its head until its snout nearly brushed the egg's smooth surface. It did not speak. Words felt too loud for this place. But a low rumble moved through its throat, soft as distant thunder over empty fields. A lullaby no one else would ever hear. The egg never answered, yet it stayed warm, and that was enough. For cycles without number, the guardian kept its vigil, a dark shape against darker sky, eyes glowing the same bruised purple as the void below. It had forgotten what hunger felt like, what rest felt like. There was only the egg, the crystals, the towers, the endless violet, and the waiting for something, waiting for nothing, waiting, because stopping would mean letting the last small light in the world go out. And the creature could not bear that. Not yet, not ever. The violet held its breath. A thin tear appeared in the air, sharp, wrong, glowing white like bone left too long in moonlight. The portal bloomed open with a sound like distant glass breaking, and through it stepped a small figure wrapped in strange cloth and iron, not an Enderman, not one of the quiet watchers, something new, something from outside. The creature felt it immediately, a ripple across scales, a tightening in the chest where no heart should still beat so fiercely after so long. The egg pulsed once, brighter, as if startled awake, wings unfurled in silence. No roar yet, only the slow, deliberate rise into the air, shadows stretching long across obsidian until it swallowed the island's edges. The wanderer froze mid-step, head tilting upward, eyes wide behind the glass of a helmet. For one heartbeat, everything stayed still. Then the dragon moved. It swept low, wings carving wind that smelled faintly of green leaves and rain, scents that did not belong here. The wanderer stumbled back, raising a hand that held no weapon, only surprise. The creature passed close enough that the tip of one wing brushed the stranger's cloak, close enough to feel the quick flutter of mortal fear. No explosion of breath, no teeth. Not yet. The dragon simply circled once, twice, a dark ring around the intruder, pressing the air smaller and smaller, until the wanderer understood. Leave. The figure hesitated, looked toward the egg, toward the towers, toward the crystals that sat like quiet sentinels on their pillars. One small step forward, that was enough. The creature's throat opened, and a stream of violet-black fire poured out, not at the wanderer, but past, scorching the nearest tower's base. The crystal above flickered wildly, its light stuttering like a candle in wind. The wanderer flinched, turned, ran toward the still-glowing portal. The dragon did not pursue. It only watched the white tear close behind the retreating shape, sealing the silence once more. But something had changed. The egg's glow had dimmed, just a fraction, barely noticeable, as if the intrusion had brushed too close, had carried away a tiny piece of warmth on its way out. The creature settled again beside the obsidian nest. Wings folded, breath slowed, yet the eyes stayed open, fixed on the place where the portal had been. Somewhere deep inside, a new feeling uncoiled, not just anger, but something colder, something like memory. The crystals had healed the small hurt from the fire's backwash, their light threading through scales like gentle fingers. The dragon had felt that healing many times before, after long flights, after old wounds from forgotten battles. But now the touch felt thinner, less certain. The guardian lowered its head until the snout rested near the egg again. The lullaby rumble returned, softer this time, almost pleading. The egg answered with the faintest shimmer. It was still warm, but the warmth felt borrowed now, and the violet seemed just a little darker than before. The portal's white scar had healed, but the air still carried the faint wrongness of outside things. Grass, wood smoke, the metallic tang of tools forged under real sunlight. The creature circled the island in long, restless loops, wings cutting slow arcs through the violet haze. Each pass brought the egg back into view, still glowing, still whole, but the light felt thinner now, like moonlight filtered through storm clouds. The guardian's breath came heavier, darker, trailing wisps of purple-black that clung to obsidian like soot. It landed beside the fountain with a thud that sent small cracks spidering across the stone. The water hissed louder for a moment, then settled. The dragon lowered its head until the tip of its snout nearly touched the egg again. The lullaby rumble tried to start, but it caught in the throat and turned into something sharper, a low growl that vibrated through the towers. Anger rose like acid in the chest, not at the wanderer, not exactly, at the silence that had returned too quickly after the intrusion, at the way the egg's pulse had hesitated, as if it too had felt the stranger's gaze and recoiled. at the endless violet that never changed, never answered, never offered anything but more waiting. The creature reared back, wings snapped wide. A roar tore free, not the controlled stream of fire from before, but a wild, jagged sound that echoed off endstone and void alike. Violet-black flame erupted in every direction, licking the nearest pillars, scorching the bases where crystals sat. One tower trembled, its crystal flickered wildly, light stuttering like a heartbeat skipping. The dragon felt the burn return through the link, sharp, familiar. The crystals were doing their quiet work, threading strength back into scales, mending what rage had torn. They had always done this. For eons they had fed life back into the guardian whenever it faltered, whenever battles with forgotten intruders left it weakened. A gift from the world itself, perhaps, or a chain disguised as kindness. But tonight the healing felt different, slower, thinner. As the flames died down, the creature noticed it. When the anger poured out unchecked, the eggs glowed, dimmed in perfect rhythm with each breath of fire. Not by much. Just enough to notice, just enough to fear. The guardian froze. It had guarded this egg with fury before, many times. Yet never had the light responded like this, as if the rage itself was pressing against the fragile shell, threatening to crack what it meant to protect. A new coldness settled beneath the scales. The creature stepped closer to the nest. When wings folded tight, breath slowed until it was barely a whisper. The egg shimmered once, uncertain, then steadied, fainter than before, but still there, still warm. The dragon remained perfectly still for a long stretch of silence. No circling, no growling, only watching. And in that stillness, the first small crack appeared inside the guardian's own heart. The understanding that its fury might not be armor after all. It might be the very thing that could break the last light in the world. The violet pressed closer. The crystals above hummed softly, their light steady now, patient. The creature did not move. It only waited, more quietly this time, and the egg answered with the tiniest trembling pulse, as if to say, "I am still here, but please, be gentle." The rage had quieted to embers, leaving only the soft hiss of the fountain and the slow drift of purple particles like dying stars. The creature remained beside the nest, wings tucked close, eyes half-lidded but never fully closed. The egg's glow had steadied again, faint, careful, as if afraid to shine too brightly after the outburst. The guardian exhaled once, long and slow, letting the last threads of black smoke curl away into the void. At the edges of the island, shapes began to move, tall, thin, silent. The Endermen had always been there, scattered across the floating islands, like dark pillars carved from the night itself. They carried blocks sometimes, shifting them without reason, as though trying to remember how to build something whole. They never came near the central island unless the dragon allowed it. Most times, they simply watched from afar, heads tilted, eyes glowing the same bruised violet as the guardian's own. Tonight, one lingered closer than the others. It stood at the rim where obsidian met void, long fingers curled around nothing, body swaying slightly, as if listening to a song no one else could hear. The creature felt its presence like a cool current against scales, neither threat nor warmth, just there. For a long while, nothing happened. Then the Enderman took one careful step onto the central island, The dragon's eyes opened wider. A low rumble stirred in the throat. Not quite a growl, not yet. The egg pulsed once, brighter, as if startled by the new shadow so near. The Enderman stopped, did not look directly at the guardian, did not reach for the egg. It only stood, arms loose at its sides, the purple-white eyes fixed somewhere on the horizon where islands drifted like forgotten dreams. The creature waited. No attack came, no sudden movement. Only silence stretched between them, thick and fragile. Slowly, the dragon shifted its weight. One massive wing unfolded partway, not in threat, but in question. The Enderman did not flinch. It simply mirrored the motion, lifting one long arm in a slow, deliberate arc, as if tracing the same curve the wing had made. A gesture, nothing more. The guardian felt something loosen inside its chest, a knot that had been tied for longer than memory. Not trust, not yet, but recognition. These silent watchers had shared the same exile, the same endless violet, the same quiet ache of being too large, too strange, too alone for any world to hold gently. The Enderman took another small step. Closer still, the dragon did not move to stop it. Instead, it lowered its head until the great snout rested near the ground, scales brushing obsidian, eyes level with the tall figure's waist. The egg lay between them now, glowing softly, a small sun caught in black stone. The Enderman knelt, slow, careful, until its face was near the nest. It did not touch, it only looked. And in that looking, there was no hunger, no fear, only a deep, wordless understanding. For the first time in forever, the creature did not feel like the only thing keeping the light alive. It felt seen, not as a monster, not as a guardian, just as something that waited, same as the other. The Enderman rose again after a long moment. It backed away slowly, never turning its back, never breaking the gaze. When it reached the island's edge, it paused, lifted one hand in farewell. Then it stepped off into the void and was gone, teleporting in a shimmer of purple particles that drifted back toward the guardian like scattered fireflies. The dragon remained still. The egg's light pulsed stronger now, warmer, as if it too had felt the quiet company. The creature exhaled again, this time not smoke, but something softer, something almost like relief. The violet around them seemed just a fraction less heavy, and somewhere in the distance, another Enderman tilted its head, watching, waiting its turn, perhaps, to stand guard together. The quiet with the Enderman lingered like soft smoke, curling around the edges of the island long after the tall shadow had stepped away. But quiet never lasted forever. In the end, the air tore again, same white scar, same sharp wrongness. The portal bloomed open with that familiar crack of distant glass, and the same wanderer stepped through, not hesitant this time, not surprised. The figure moved with purpose, eyes already lifted toward the towers, toward the crystals that sat like pale moons on their pillars. The creature felt the shift instantly, scales tightening, wings stirring before the mind even named the feeling. The egg pulsed once, quick, bright, almost warning. This time the wanderer carried something small and bright in one hand. A pickaxe, maybe, or a bow. The guardian did not wait to see. It launched upward in a single powerful beat of wings, shadow swallowing the island whole. The wanderer did not run. Instead, the figure raised the tool weapon and struck once, twice, at the base of the nearest tower. Stone cracked. Dust rose in slow violet clouds. The crystal above trembled. The dragon felt it like a needle through the heart. The healing link thinning, flickering. One beam of light from the crystal dimmed, then died. The guardian's scales prickled with sudden cold, old wounds from forgotten ages reopening in tiny stinging lines. The wanderer moved to the next tower. The creature dove, wings folded tight, body arrow straight, breath gathering violet black in the throat. Fire poured out, and not wild this time, but focused, a lance of shadow aimed at the intruder below. The wanderer rolled aside at the last heartbeat, cloak singed but unharmed. The ground where they had stood smoked and cracked. Another crystal shattered under the wanderer's strike. Light faded from it forever. The dragon faltered mid-flight. Pain bloomed sharp and bright along one wing, health draining faster than the remaining crystals could feed it back. Scales cracked open in thin lines of pale glow, as though dawn were trying to force its way through night. The creature landed heavily on obsidian, claws gouging deep furrows, breath coming in ragged pulls. For the first time, the guardian understood something it had never allowed itself to feel before. It was tiring. Not just from this fight, from all of them. From every portal that had ever opened, every stranger who had ever looked too long at the egg, every cycle of rage and healing and rage again. The wanderer paused, looked up, not with triumph, not with fear, with something quieter, something almost like sorrow. The figure took one step toward the central fountain, toward the egg. The dragon rose again, slower this time, wings trembling at the edges. It positioned itself between the wanderer and the nest, massive body blocking the glow, breath hissing through teeth. But the eyes were different now. Not only fury, there was a question there too. Why do you keep coming back? Why won't you let the silence stay? The wanderer did not answer with words, only lowered the tool, hands open, palms up. The egg pulsed behind the guardian, fainter but steady, as if it too were watching, as if it too were waiting for the answer. The creature held its ground, yet something inside had cracked wider than any crystal could mend. The discovery that endless protection might be wearing the light thin, that the very strength meant to shield was beginning to dim what it guarded most. The wanderer took one careful step back. The portal flickered open behind them again. This time, the figure did not run through it immediately. They lingered just a moment, eyes on the dragon, on the egg, on the broken towers. Then they stepped through. The tear closed. Silence returned, but it was heavier now. The guardian sank beside the nest, wings drooping, breath shallow. The remaining crystals hummed weakly, threading what little strength they had left into weary scales. The egg glowed on, small, stubborn, warm, but the light felt farther away than ever, and the violet pressed in closer, whispering, "How long can you keep this up?" The creature had no answer, only the slow, aching beat of wings folding tight around the last small hope in the world. The broken towers stood quieter now, their missing crystals like empty sockets staring into the void. The creature sank lower beside the nest, wings draped across obsidian like heavy blankets pulled tight against cold. Breath came shallow, each exhale carrying faint threads of violet smoke that curled and faded before they could reach the egg. The remaining crystals so hummed weakly overhead, their light threading through scales in slow, careful pulses, enough to keep the guardian upright but no more. Exhaustion settled deep, heavier than any rage. The egg glowed on, small, stubborn, its lavender shimmer the only steady thing left in the violet. The dragon watched it without moving, without circling, without the restless sweep of wings. For once, there was no roar waiting in the throat, no fire gathering, only stillness. And in that stillness, footsteps returned, not the sharp click of boots from another world, softer, longer strides. One of the Endermen approached again, the same one, perhaps, or another. The guardian could no longer tell them apart in the haze of weariness. Tall shadow against darker shadow, eyes glowing soft, purple-white. It stopped at the edge of the fountain, did not kneel this time, simply stood, arms loose, head tilted as though listening to the faint drip of void water. The creature lifted its gaze slowly. No growl rose, no wing unfolded in warning. The eyes met, not direct, never direct, but close enough that the silence between them felt shared. The Enderman took one careful step forward, then another, until it stood near enough that the dragon could feel the faint hum of its presence, like static before lightning, but gentler, cooler. No threat, no demand, only company. The guardian shifted, just enough to make space beside the nest, a small opening in the curve of its coiled body, an invitation so quiet it might have been imagination. The Enderman hesitated, then stepped into that space. It lowered itself to sit, long legs folding, back resting lightly against the warm scales of the dragon's side. No touch, no pressure, just nearness. The egg pulsed once, brighter, as though surprised by the new warmth so close. For a long stretch, nothing moved. No words passed, no gestures, only the slow rise and fall of massive breathing beside the steady rhythm of a quieter one. The fountain hissed softly. Purple particles drifted upward like lazy fireflies. The violet sky pressed down, but for once it did not feel crushing. The creature felt something loosen inside, something that had been knotted tight since the first portal ever opened. Not trust in the full sense, not yet, but permission. Permission to rest, permission to let another share the watch, even for a moment. The Enderman lifted one long hand, not to reach for the egg, only to trace a slow circle in the air above the obsidian, mirroring the shape of the nest. A silent promise. I see it too. I will remember. It is fragile. The dragon exhaled, long, slow, smoke-free. The sound was almost a sigh. The egg answered with a warmer glow, steady now, as though the loneliness had thinned just enough for light to breathe easier. After what might have been minutes or hours, the Enderman rose again. It backed away with the same careful slowness, never turning fully, never breaking the quiet bond. At the island's edge it paused, lifted that same hand once more, in thanks, in farewell. Then it vanished in a shimmer of particles that drifted back toward the guardian, settling lightly on scales like scattered stardust. The creature remained as it was, still, wings half draped, head low beside the nest. For the first time in forever, the waiting did not feel so heavy. The crystals above hummed a little stronger, as if they too had felt the small gift of company, and the violet, for just a breath, seemed to hold less ache. The stillness with the Enderman had left a gentle echo, like the last note of a song that refuses to fade completely. The creature remained curled around the nest, wings half draped, head low so that breath brushed the egg's smooth curve in warm, slow waves. The remaining crystals hummed above, their light softer now, more tentative, as though even they were beginning to tire of feeding strength into a guardian that kept breaking itself open. The egg pulsed steadily, warmer than before, as if the quiet company had reminded it how to glow without fear. But doubt had slipped in with the silence. It started small, a flicker in one of the last crystals during the long watch. A moment when the healing beam stuttered, thin as thread, before steadying again. The dragon felt it deep in the marrow of its wings. The link was fraying, not from battle alone, from something quieter, from the endless cycle of charge and defend, roar and heal, rage and rest. Each time the crystals poured light back in, they gave a little less. Each time the guardian rose to meet another intruder, it rose a fraction slower. The creature shifted, scales scraping obsidian with a sound like distant rain on stone. Eyes lifted to the towers, fewer lights now, fewer sentinels. The end had always been empty, but never quite this hollow. And then the thought arrived, soft and terrible. Perhaps the egg's light had always been tied to the realm's own heartbeat. Perhaps keeping everything still, keeping strangers away, keeping change away, had kept more than just danger at bay. It had kept life itself from moving forward. The egg shimmered brighter for a heartbeat, as though sensing the shift in the guardian's mind. The glow traveled outward, touching the obsidian, touching the fountain's water, touching even the faint particles that drifted like slow snow. For a moment, the violet seemed less cold. The dragon lowered its head again, snout so close the warmth of the egg brushed scales like a memory of sunlight. The lullaby rumble tried to rise, but it caught, turned into a low, aching sound that had no name. What if protection had become a cage? What if the very watch meant to cradle the light had pressed it smaller, dimmer, afraid to unfold? The creature stayed perfectly still while the doubt grew roots. No roar, no flight, only the slow realization spreading through every vein. The egg pulsed strongest, not when the island was silent and sealed, but when something, someone, had stood beside it without threat. When the air had held 2 breaths instead of 1. A small fear uncoiled beside the doubt. If the guardian kept driving everything away, if it kept burning the bridges before they could even form, the egg might never know anything beyond this small circle of obsidian and void. It might never hatch into more than waiting. The crystals above gave one last, gentle pulse of light, enough to mend the tiny cracks that doubt had opened in old scales. But the healing felt different now, less like restoration, more like farewell. The dragon exhaled, smoke curling upward in thin spirals that caught the egg's glow and turned lavender. The egg answered, steady, warm, almost hopeful, as though it had been waiting for this question all along, as though it understood that sometimes the kindest thing a guardian can do is wonder if the watch has lasted long enough. The violet sky hung heavy, but for the first time the creature did not feel crushed beneath it, only small, only uncertain, only beginning to listen. The doubt had rooted deep now, quiet and persistent, like water wearing stone, smooth over endless cycles. The creature stayed low beside the nest, wings draped loosely, breath slow enough that the egg's glow barely flickered with each exhale. The remaining crystals hummed above, fewer voices in the choir, their light thinner, yet still threading gentle strength into weary scales whenever the guardian's head dipped too low. In the distance, across the fractured islands, a shimmer caught the violet air. One of the Endermen, perhaps the same quiet companion from before, moved too quickly near the edge of a floating landmass. A block slipped from its grasp. The tall figure swayed, long arms reaching for balance that was no longer there. The void yawned beneath. A single misstep. The creature felt it before seeing it fully. A sudden tightening in the chest, sharper than any wound from crystal or intruder. Instinct older than rage stirred. Wings snapped open, not in fury, but in urgent need. The dragon launched, not the slow rise of watchful circling, not the arrow-straight dive of battle. A desperate glide, body low, wings straining against the thin air of the end. The guardian crossed the gap between islands in heartbeats that felt stolen from time itself. The Enderman teetered on the brink, purple particles already beginning to gather around its form, as though preparing to flee into nothingness. The creature arrived beneath it, massive wings curled upward like a cradle of shadow. One careful sweep caught the falling figure, not crushing, not bruising, only holding. The dragon twisted midair, taking the full weight of the tall watcher against its back. Claws dug into obsidian on the far side of the chasm, anchoring them both. Pain bloomed instantly, sharp along the spine where old cracks reopened, where the last crystal's healing could no longer keep pace. Scales split in thin lines of pale light. Breath hissed through teeth, ragged and raw. Yet the Enderman was safe. The tall shadow slid slowly down the guardian's side until its feet found solid ground again. It stood trembling, not from fear, but from the nearness of the void's pull. Purple-white eyes lifted to meet the dragon's bruised gaze. No words, no gesture grand enough. Only a long, slow bow of the head, deep, so deliberate, the kind given only to something that has just given more than it had left to give. The creature remained still, wings half-folded now, breath coming in shallow pulls. The pain lingered, bright and honest, but beneath it something warmer uncoiled. The feeling had shifted again, not protection out of duty, not rage out of loneliness, mercy, simple, costly, chosen. The egg, far across the gap on the central island, pulsed brighter for a moment, as though it had felt the act echo through the void, as though the light inside had recognized kindness without anger attached. The Enderman stepped closer. One long hand rose, hesitated, then rested feather light against the dragon's lowered snout. No pressure, only touch. Cool fingers against warm scales. A gift returned in the only language they shared, presence. The guardian did not pull away. For the first time, the touch did not feel like intrusion. It felt like remembering how to be held, even a little. The Enderman lingered only a breath longer, then it backed away, slow, reverent, until it stood at the edge again. One last bow, one shimmer of particles, gone. The dragon remained where it had landed, wings drooping, breath steadying. The crystals above, those still standing, hummed a softer song, pouring what little strength remained into the fresh hurts. It was not enough to erase the pain, but it was enough to keep standing, enough to keep watching the nest from afar. The violet sky felt wider somehow, less like a cage, more like a blanket drawn close by unseen hands. and in the quiet that followed, the creature understood something new. Sometimes, the greatest shield is not the one that keeps everything out. Sometimes, it is the one lowered just once to catch what is falling. The act of mercy had left a quiet scar, not painful, but bright, like starlight caught under scales. The creature returned to the central island in slow, heavy glides, wings trembling from the strain of the rescue. Each beat sent faint cracks of pale light through the old wounds, reminders that the crystal's healing could no longer keep pace with every choice made. The guardian landed softly beside the nest, claws careful not to scratch the obsidian too deeply. Breath came ragged at first, then steadier until it matched the egg's own gentle rhythm. The egg glowed warmer now, almost steady, almost sure, as though the echo of that selfless dive had reached even here, across the void, and reminded it that kindness still existed in this empty place. But the silence did not last. The air split once more. The familiar white tear opened, cleaner this time, more deliberate. The wanderer stepped through again, no tool raised, no hurried steps, just quiet presence, eyes already fixed on the nest, on the faint lavender shimmer that waited there. The creature rose slowly, wings unfolded halfway, not in threat but in question, body positioned between the intruder and the egg, yet not lunging forward, not roaring, only watching. The wanderer stopped at the fountain's edge, hands open, no armor glinting under violet light, no weapon drawn, only stillness and a gaze that carried no hunger for destruction. The dragon felt the old instinct rise, fire gathering in the throat, wings tensing to sweep low and drive the stranger back through the portal forever. The crystals above flickered weakly, offering what little strength remained, as though urging one last defense. But the guardian hesitated. The egg pulsed brighter behind it, clear, hopeful, as if it sensed the moment hanging between destruction and something else entirely. The wanderer took one small step closer, not toward the egg, toward the dragon. Eyes met, bruised violet against mortal brown. No flinch, no challenge, only waiting. The creature's breath caught. The fire in its throat cooled to smoke, then to nothing. Wings lowered inch by inch until the tips brushed obsidian. The massive shadow no longer blocked the nest completely. A narrow path remained open, enough for one careful step, one quiet approach. The wanderer did not rush. One more step, then another. Close enough now that the guardian could feel the faint warmth of another living thing, the soft rhythm of a heartbeat that was not its own. Close enough to see the small lines of weariness around the stranger's eyes, weariness that matched its own, cycle for cycle. The egg's glow swelled, filling the space between them with soft lavender light. Particles drifted upward from the fountain, slow and dreamlike, catching the shimmer like fireflies remembering how to dance. The dragon did not move to strike. It only lowered its head, slow, deliberate, until the great snout rested near the ground, scales brushing the obsidian beside the nest. Not submission, not surrender, invitation. The wanderer knelt. One hand reached out, not to touch the egg, not yet, only to rest palm down on the cool stone near the guardian's snout, close enough to feel shared warmth, close enough to share silence. No words passed, only breath, two rhythms slowly finding the same tempo. The crystals above gave one final, faint hum. Their light dimmed, not in defeat, but in quiet acceptance, as though the realm itself understood the watch was changing shape. The creature felt something inside loosen completely, not breaking, but unfolding. The fear that had guarded the egg for eons began to soften, replaced by a new, trembling certainty. Perhaps the light had never needed endless protection. Perhaps it had only needed to be seen. The wanderer lifted their gaze to the egg, then back to the dragon. A single tear slipped down one cheek, small, unnoticed in the violet haze. The guardian exhaled, long, smoke-free, warm. The egg answered with the strongest pulse yet, steady, alive, waiting no longer for defense, waiting now for whatever came next. The shared silence between the guardian and the wanderer had grown thick with possibility, soft as twilight settling over still water. The creature remained low, head near the ground, massive snout close enough to the obsidian that breath stirred tiny motes of purple dust. The egg rested between them now, no longer hidden behind shadow, no longer shielded by fury. Its glow had swelled into something steady and sure, lavender light spilling outward in gentle waves that touched scales, touched stone, touched the wanderer's open palm. The crystals above gave their final, faint song, barely a whisper now. Their light no longer poured in streams of healing. Instead, it simply lingered, quiet and accepting, as though the realm itself had exhaled and decided to rest. The wanderer knelt motionless. Eyes never left the egg, so never left the dragon. The small space between them felt alive with unspoken questions. The guardian felt the old command rise one last time. Drive the intruder away. Seal the portal. Return to the endless circle of watch and wait. The instinct was carved deep, born in the same moment the egg had first pulsed into being, when the end had whispered that this fragile thing was all that remained worth guarding. Yet the instinct met something newer, something born in mercy and stillness and doubt. It met the memory of an Enderman caught before the void. It met the warmth of quiet company beside the nest. It met the egg's own light, brighter now than it had ever been, in perfect isolation. The creature lifted its head, slow, deliberate. Wings unfolded partway, not to strike, but to curve gently around the space where the wanderer knelt. Not a cage, an embrace of shadow that left room for light. The wanderer's breath caught. They looked up. The dragon's bruised violet eyes held steady. No fire gathered, no roar waited. Only a long, quiet gaze that carried everything the guardian had never spoken. I have kept this alone for so long. I have broken myself to keep it safe. But perhaps safe is not the same as alive. One massive wing dipped lower, tip brushing obsidian near the nest. An opening, a path, permission. The wanderer rose slowly, one careful step forward, then another, until they stood directly beside the egg, close enough to feel its warmth, close enough that the lavender glow painted soft color across their face. The dragon did not flinch, did not pull away. Instead, it lowered its head once more, snout resting beside the wanderer's shoulder, scales warm against the stranger's side, breath slow and even, matching the rhythm of another heartbeat. The egg stirred. A faint crack, tiny, almost inaudible, traveled across its smooth surface, not breaking, awakening. The light inside brightened, pulsed in time with 2 breaths now instead of 1. The guardian felt it all. The shift, the release, the quiet unraveling of a vigil that had lasted eons. Something inside loosened completely, not with pain, but with relief so deep it ached. The wanderer placed one hand lightly on the egg's curve, not claiming, only touching, only witnessing. The dragon exhaled, long, warm, smoke-free, a sound almost like a sigh carried across the void. The portal behind them remained open, white and waiting, but neither moved toward it. For this moment there was no outside, no intrusion. Only 3 heartbeats, finding the same slow tempo, wanderer, guardian, and the small life that had waited so long to begin. The choice had been made, not to destroy, not to hide, but to let go, to let near, to let be. And in that letting, the violet sky seemed to soften, as though even the end had been holding its breath and could finally breathe again. The choice had opened something ancient and quiet inside the guardian. The creature stayed low, wings curved loosely around the small space where the wanderer knelt beside the eggs. No barrier remained now, only nearness, 2 breaths, 1 glow, and the slow unraveling of a vigil that had lasted longer than stars remember. The egg's surface shimmered brighter with each shared heartbeat. Tiny cracks spread like delicate veins of light across the shell, not violent, not sudden, but gentle, inevitable. The lavender inside swelled, warm and certain, spilling outward until it bathed the obsidian in soft color. Particles rose from the fountain in lazy spirals, catching the glow and turning it into drifting embers of violet and gold. The dragon felt the change begin in its own body. It started at the edges of the wings, scales that had held shadow for eons beginning to soften, to thin, to shimmer with the same pale light that had once come only from the crystals. The guardian exhaled, and the breath carried no smoke, only warmth that drifted upward like mist over morning fields. The wanderer's hand remained lightly on the egg, eyes wide, not with fear, but with wonder. A single tear traced down their cheek again, falling silently onto obsidian where it caught the light and became a tiny star. The creature lowered its head until its snout brushed the wanderer's shoulder, gentle, careful, the first true touch given freely. Scales met cloth, cool against warm. The contact sent a quiet ripple through the guardian's form, more light blooming beneath the surface, tracing old cracks, filling them with radiance instead of pain. Wings began to fade first, not torn away, not broken, simply dissolving, edges blurring into particles that lifted upward, slow and graceful, joining the drift from the fountain. Each piece that let go felt lighter, freer, as though the weight of endless watch had been carried in the very substance of its being. The body followed, scales turning translucent, then luminous, then air. The long neck arched once more, not in defense but in quiet farewell. Eyes, bruised violet, softened to pale lavender, then to something brighter, with something almost white. The egg cracked fully now, not with sound that shattered silence, with a soft sigh like petals opening after long winter. Light poured out, pure, warm, alive. A small form stirred inside, wings still folded, eyes closed, body curled in the same protective circle the guardian had held for so long. The creature, now mostly light, curled one last time around them both, not to guard, to cradle, to witness. The wanderer lifted both hands, palms up, catching falling particles as they drifted past. Tears fell freely now, but the face held no sorrow, only a deep, aching gratitude. The guardian's form completed its release. No final roar, no burst of fire, only a slow bloom of light that spread outward, across the island, across the broken towers, across the void itself. Particles danced like fireflies remembering summer. The remaining crystals flickered once, brightly, then dimmed forever, their purpose fulfilled. The dragon was gone, yet not gone. It became the violet itself, soft wind moving between floating islands, gentle hum in the fountain's water, faint shimmer in the egg's newborn glow. The small form inside the egg stirred again, eyes opened, same bruised violet, same quiet wonder. Tiny wings unfurled, trembling but strong. The wanderer smiled through tears, reached out, and for the first time, the light answered without fear, without cage, without end. The light had become everything. Where once there had been only violet and shadow and endless watch, now soft radiance drifted between floating islands like morning mist over forgotten fields. The central island lay quiet, no roar echoing off obsidian, no fire trailing from a guardian's breath. Only the gentle hiss of the fountain, slower now, as though it too had learned to rest. The small form that had emerged from the egg stood trembling on unsteady legs. Tiny wings, still damp with the glow of creation, unfurled one careful inch at a time. Eyes the color of bruised twilight blinked against the soft light, taking in the world for the first time. Not vast emptiness, not cold silence, just this place and the warmth that still lingered in the air where the old guardian had been. The wanderer remained kneeling beside the nest, hands open, tears drying on cheeks like dew left after rain. No words passed between them, none were needed. The small creature tilted its head, sniffed once at the stranger's palm, then pressed its forehead lightly against the open hand. A touch so fragile it might have been imagination, yet it held. Particles continued to drift, violet and gold and palest lavender, settling on obsidian, on wings, on shoulders. They did not fade. They simply became part of the breeze that moved now through the end, carrying scents no one had ever smelled here before. Faint green, distant rain, the memory of leaves turning in sunlight worlds away. The fountain's water ran clearer, its purple hue softening toward silver. The broken towers stood silent, no longer sentinels, but quiet witnesses. The void below no longer felt like falling. It felt like space, waiting to be filled with whatever came next. The young dragon lifted its head. A small sound escaped, high, soft, almost a question. The wanderer answered with the gentlest smile, fingers brushing the curve of one new wing. No cage, no chain, only presence. And in that presence, the creature understood something the old guardian had carried in silence for eons. The light it had guarded had never belonged to one watcher alone. It had always been meant to spread, to change, to become more than a single fragile glow cradled in black stone. The wanderer rose slowly. The small dragon followed, wings fluttering, feet finding balance step by trembling step. Together they moved toward the edge of the island, where the portal still waited, white and open like a door left ajar on purpose. No rush, but no fear. The breeze stirred again, carrying the last faint echo of massive wings that had once filled the sky. It wrapped around them both, warm, protective, free. The young one paused at the threshold, looked back once at the nest, at the fountain, at the quiet towers now bathed in soft dawn that was not dawn. Then it turned forward, one small step through the tear. The wanderer followed. The portal closed behind them, not with violence, but with the soft sigh of something completed. And in the end that remained, silence returned. But it was different silence now. Not lonely, not heavy, only peaceful, as though the realm itself had exhaled and discovered it could breathe without a guardian standing forever between it and whatever came after. Somewhere in the drifting particles, in the gentle wind between islands, in the clearer water of the fountain, the old watcher lingered, not as shadow, not as rage, but as quiet sky. And if you listened, really listened, you might hear the faintest rumble, soft as distant thunder over empty fields. A lullaby carried on the breeze, saying without words, and in letting go, we become the sky itself. The violet softened, the light stayed, and for the first time in forever, the end felt like home.